Doing? So we got a really good topic today, and it's kind of knowing what diet is the best for you, what is more optimal when it comes to losing weight, not just in the short term, but the long term. And the two diets we're going to take a look at today are the very low carb, carbohydrate type diet versus the low fat diet. And now usually, when you get into dieting, you guys think, hey, fats are the enemy, stay away from those fats. And on the contrary, sometimes it's, hey, stay away from those carbs. Carbs are the enemy. In my personal experience, I've been a bodybuilder for about 2 years, and I've done about 3 shows now. And every time we get really close to competition, and we really need to lose as much fat and as much weight as possible, man, it's a staple to just drop those carbs off. There's times that I'm at like 10, 20 grams of carbs a day. So that being said, that's just my personal experience, but I wanted to take a look into it and really see the studies behind it and what really is the best way to go about it. But before we could do that, let's understand a little bit more about each type of the diets. So let's start here with the low fat type diet. Now this, things like whole grain bread, big part of that diet. Having whole grain, pasta, oatmeal, rice, fruits, chicken, veggies, all those things are a very big part of that low-fat diet. You kind of tend to stay away from things like red meats and things of that nature. And on the contrary, we have the very low-carb, ketogenic type diet. Now this, eggs are amazing, butter, cheese, nuts, salmon, other types of fish. But that could also be, fish is also good for the low-fat diet. So that's why I kind of put those in the middle. But again, here it's red meats or meats that are higher in fat. Those are totally okay on that type of diet. But a big thing to understand is when we look at this research and these studies done on both types of these diets, people were in a caloric deficit, because on either type of these diets, if you're having more calories in than calories out, it's probably not going to work for you. You need to drop the calories regardless of which of these types of diets that you guys choose to do. Now that being said, let's go into the study. And it was awesome because they searched the entire web base, and they found 3,378 different studies comparing the low fat type diet to the low carbohydrate ketosis type diet. And of all those studies, they only found 13 that matched their criteria, whether it was correctly sourced, they had enough subjects. They only had 13 that they found, and of those 13, there was 1,415 patients. So that's a pretty big sample size to be able to have a comparison between the two types of diets. And not only that, they really did a good job in eliminating stuff that wasn't, they didn't find efficient for this test. So what they found pretty much all the way through with their test is that the very low carbohydrate ketosis type diet had optimal results and superior results in the long term and short term in weight loss. And that's something that I kind of figured and I would expect to see because of just my personal experience and my clients' experience on the matter, what happens when you do drop carbs off. Another really interesting thing though was HDL increased with the very low carbohydrate ketosis diet, and this is in direct correlation with losing weight. The higher that number is, the more weight you're probably losing, and on the contrary, the lower that number is, you're probably not losing much weight and you have a higher chance of CHD. So not only is it better for the weight loss and fat loss, but it's better for heart health. Now that being said, and that was a lot of the study, they looked at things, what it did for the heart, what it did for weight loss, and they did an amazing job at that. But the thing that they didn't really account for is how you feel on it. How do you function on that type of diet? And this, I could tell you, a personal story. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to close your eyes, and I want you to think about, having that bread that you're craving, having all those carbs, and I know you guys crave those. And I want you to think about, as I said earlier, this is almost half the limit you could have in a day. And think about sustaining that for years and in the long term, and how hard that would be for you to do, and what that does to your mind, right? It really plays with the mental state. And I know when I diet down there, yeah, the results are great, but man, there's a lot of times I'm tired and I really crave those carbs. So that's something that this test didn't explain, but I want you guys to realize that that is a very big part of this, and just the ability to stay with it. Now, another thing with this is, you know, kind of on the downside is they use studies from aggregated data rather than individual patient data. And while there was a lot of examples and a lot of work that was done, credible work, it still wasn't quite the same as that individual patient data. And again, as I stated earlier, only blood risk factors were accounted for. So, that being said, and also to go along with the fact that adherence to the very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet was also very low. That's why a lot of the patients, there was more patients, but a lot of them dropped off simply just because they couldn't handle that type of diet. So knowing those things, you know, assessing what really is right for you. Now, there's no doubt, you look at the studies, ever since the 30s, you know, all the bodybuilding shows and all that stuff, the very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet, there's no doubt that it's superior in weight loss, fat loss, and heart health. That's undeniable. But if you can't stay on that, if you can't get yourself to stay consistent with that diet, and you lapse and you binge eat, it's actually not going to be better. So that's when you got to really look at, okay, I know I love my carbs, but how to, you know, because the calories and fats add up quick. You know, you take an avocado, you know, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories, whereas 1 gram of a carbohydrate is only 4. So you might eat one of these avocados when you could have potentially 4 apples. So there's a lot more foods you could eat on a very low fat diet in comparison to a very low carb diet. So all those things you got to kind of play into account there. But I hope that helped you guys to understand a little bit more about this dilemma, and